Welcome, everybody. The final round. If anybody has been here with me in the past, this will be the third one that I'm moderating. The first one was construction, the second one was finance, and this is about upcoming projects and developments with three of our most prominent developers within the state of Maine. I'm Shannon Richards. I own a company called Hayrunner. I have a real estate license with Sotheby's, and my business does real estate design and construction, mostly residential, some boutique commercial. I'm the vice president of MEREDA and the head of the conference committee, so I help write all of the content here and produce it. And I would welcome anybody who's interested in being more involved with MEREDA to come find me, because we're always looking for people to get involved. We have a pretty large board, but a lot of them have already kind of been there and done that, and we're looking for new members to get more active. Certainly starts out in the committees. So with that, I'm going to start by introducing each of the people here on the stage, and they're going to tell you a little bit about who they are, why they're experts, and why we've invited them here today to talk about 2023, what happened, and predict for 2024. This is the Forecast Conference, which is MEREDA's biggest conference of the year. We have almost 1,000 people here today joining us, which is huge. Post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, that was pretty average, or at least it was the biggest one we had was around the size of the one today. I think Craig pointed it out. And we wanted today's experience to be a little more interactive. So if you have questions, feel free to stand up at the mic, raise your hand, we'll repeat it. We really wanted to engage with the audience, and in years past, some of the negative feedback was that it was a little too, predictive. It was the same thing every time. So welcome, thank you, and I think, Dan, are you first? We'll start with you. Okay, great, thanks.
Good afternoon, I'm Dan Bacon. I'm the development director for M&R Holdings. M&R Holdings is the real estate investment group that's developing Scarborough Downs. I have a background in planning, so prior to working with M&R Holdings, over the past 4 years, I worked as a planning and engineering consultant for a few years, and before that, I was the planning director for a long time in the town of Scarborough, which is a fitting role for me, kind of leading up to this initiative with Scarborough Downs. So to tell you a little bit about M&R Holdings before jumping into what's been going on at Scarborough Downs and what's upcoming, M&R Holdings really handles the design, the permitting, the planning aspect of the Downs development project. We've been at it for about 6 years. We have a great internal team that handles a lot of those tasks. We also have a great collection of consultants aiding us with the various phases of the development project that's been underway. To start the kind of slideshow here, to give you a sense of the overall project, this is our, I think, current master plan. It changes weekly, if not monthly. It's about a 550 acre site. Obviously, folks in the audience probably know a fair amount about kind of key destinations within it, most notably Costco, which is a great new addition in November of this past year. But lesser known about the project is all the kind of the residential assets and housing types that we've done over the years, really kind of playing to the market, as well as the light industrial. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of where we're at over the past couple of years and where we're headed in both of those sectors. So to kind of give you a sense of housing at the Downs, the zoning that's in place really has enabled us to kind of hit a home run in terms of playing to the market. The zoning that we have is very flexible in terms of the uses that are allowed. Everything from tiny homes up to large retail and large light industrial is possible. So it's a quite flexible zone to enable us to deliver a lot of different products to the market. It has a rigorous planning process, so it has a in-depth kind of master planning process up front. So there's a fair amount of rigor, but the flexibility that it's enabled is through the allowed uses. It allows us to, through master planning, basically come up with a development plan for the different areas of the project and they're quite diverse. We have residential areas that are compact, very walkable, have a lot of different housing types, all the way up to a light industrial park in the innovation district that's really the polar opposite of that other end of the project. And in a few minutes, I'll talk a little bit about the town center, which is different from that. But in terms of housing, over the past 5 years, we've delivered about 540 units in everything from some 525 square foot tiny homes that we sold as condominiums up to senior affordable housing that we partnered with Kevin Bunker and Developers Collaborative on, to townhouses, to our pocket neighborhood single-family homes that we worked with Woodhull on design, to condominiums, to apartments. So instead of focusing on one asset class around residential, we've really kind of run the gamut to play to and to sell to or rent to a wide range of markets, which has really helped us be successful over the past few years. And we're heading into the town center phase of the project, where we're going to focus on even different asset classes around residential. We're going to perform our first luxury condominium project, as well as new kind of apartment products that are going to be within mixed-use buildings, a more urban style of residential development. So again, with a great kind of market for housing, we're doing our best to kind of help the state and the region with the housing crisis by providing a wide range of housing types, and the zoning has really kind of enabled that to be possible. On the flip end of the project, and also on the flip side in terms of use, we have our innovation district, which really took off during the pandemic. The timing was great in terms of demand for light industrial, as many in this room are well aware of over the past 5 years. And also the structure of how we put together this light industrial innovation district, where we designed basically, we pre-permitted the entire light industrial district with 1 acre lots, but laid out in a way that was modular, meaning an end user, if they could fit on an acre, would acquire just the acre. DEP permits would be in place, traffic permits were in place, local permits were in place, so they can just proceed through site plan and proceed with that 1 acre development. If they needed 2 acres, if they needed 25 acres, they could acquire the multiplication of those lots to perform much larger sites and much larger buildings. So that enabled us to proceed with the smaller kind of flex type space that could fit in an acre, all the way up to an IDEX that acquired 25 acres and is moving forward with and just opened the first phase of their new destination in Scarborough, 115,000 square foot research laboratory. I think they're focusing on water research as their primary activity there, but their new site in Scarborough, as well as a Costco. So our structure of the zoning really enabled kind of that framework to move forward quite successfully. In terms of what's on the boards, what's on the books for this coming year is our town center. So we're kind of moving into the most exciting aspect of the project, which is going to be kind of the heartbeat of the project, right in the core where the grandstand used to be, in the track, with a modern kind of mixed-use town center. We've already pre-permitted the first phase of this area and have some key end users that are going to move forward this year. So Allagash is going to relocate their tasting room from Portland and perform a kind of a purpose-built destination tasting room right on the edge of the town center off of Higas Parkway, which will be a third entrance into the project, which is super excited. We've been working with Rob Todd and his team over the past year and a half on moving that forward. Right across the street, we have a mixed-use site planned with some retail, some restaurant, potentially a drive-through coffee shop to complement Allagash's new tasting room. And then right in the core, we're moving forward with those luxury condominiums. 3i Home is a first in the state affordable housing project for the disabled. And they're all designed and permitted to move forward. They've been really interested in locating in the Downs, given the design, the ability for the disabled to kind of live within a new town center, be close to services, be close to amenities in a modern facility. So they're in the process of securing their final funding, would move forward later this year, along with the first mixed-use buildings within this town center that we're in the process of pricing, and we'll be marketing later this year to potential restaurants in retail space with apartments and condominiums upstairs. So that's really what's on the boards for the remainder of this year, the next year or two, as we kind of build momentum in the town center and kind of proceed with this phase of the project. And here's a couple images just of this first phase. We're still finalizing kind of the key amenity space, which would be in the core of the project. I've been working on kind of a green space with space for breweries, restaurants. We're also envisioning potentially a Woonerf type situation where we have a shared street with retail surrounding it. Another end user that's in the permitting process that would be a key kind of early anchor for us is Intermed. They're looking to locate a new surgery center, imaging, and medical office. We're still working through kind of the permitting design process for them, but they're in position to start later this year and also kind of create some early activity for us. So it's a pretty complex project to initiate a new kind of retail center and draw daily customers and visitors into the project. So we've been really focused on, okay, what are those early anchors that can create that momentum?
How many phases do you have total?
So to date, I mean, there's, at a larger scale, I think this is really kind of our third larger phase, but we tend to have multiple phases within phases. So I would say we're on the order of 5 or 6 phases overall, but have been doing some sub-phasing to get to that number.
Awesome.
So that's really, in a nutshell, kind of where we are today and where we're headed in the next couple years. And I think I'll turn it back to you, Shannon.
Great. I can't remember who's next. It might be Rebecca. Yep, Avesta. Well, you want to give her thanks.
Great. Glad to be here every day. Or glad to be here today. Every day. I'm not here every day, I promise. So just to start, I'm Rebecca Hatfield. I'm the president and CEO of Avesta Housing. I have been with Avesta Housing for about 8.5 years, and during my time here, prior to being the CEO, I ran the real estate development and property management team. And prior to my time at Avesta, I was a commercial and corporate banker in New York. So happy to be here today. I'm going to start off just by talking a little bit about Avesta Housing. Avesta Housing has been around for a little over 50 years. We are the largest nonprofit affordable housing developer in northern New England, and we have 300 employees across Maine and New Hampshire. We have 5 areas of focus, or what I like to call pillars of our mission. So the first one is real estate development. We do build and develop new housing. Over the last 10 years, we've built over 1,200 new affordable homes in Maine and New Hampshire. We also have a property management and resident services team. We have 100 properties in our portfolio, which is about 3,200 units, serving 4,500 residents every single day. We also have a home ownership center, which provides home buyer education, home ownership counseling, free financial and credit counseling and budget counseling. We own 2 assisted living facilities, and we're also very active in advocacy and policy.
Are you the biggest developer in Maine?
Nonprofit affordable housing developer in Maine, yes. So I think this is, we all know this about the affordable housing landscape. To talk a little bit about the need for affordable housing, the numbers here on the right-hand side, the right-hand side, yes, came from the state of Maine. So we need 80,000 units by 2030, and some data released by Maine Housing a few years ago said we need 20 to 30,000 new affordable units, and my guess is that that number is much higher now. It's probably closer to 35 to 40,000 of those units need to be affordable to those at 60% of the area median income and below. Avesta, on our own, we always track the number of applications that we receive each year and how many applicants we're able to house. And so in 2023, we received 6,500 applications, and we were able to house 420 people. So the demand was 15 times the supply, or in other words, we were able to meet the housing needs of only 1 in 15 applicants that walk through our doors. And we have a pretty large supply of housing. It's been growing rapidly over the past 3 to 4 years, so we saw more than double increase from 20 to 2022, and then it's been fairly steady in 2023. To talk about our real estate development pipeline, this might be a little bit hard to see, but we have worked to, obviously because of the need of housing, we've doubled our real estate development pipeline in the last 5 to 6 years. So we currently have over 800 units in the pipeline that we expect to deliver in the next 3 to 5 years. And that's in 12 towns, 5 counties across Maine, and we have one new development in New Hampshire right now. And then the last 2 slides, I just want to give a couple of examples, show 2 properties. One that we just recently completed, and then one that we're currently working on. Porter Station is in the St. John Valley neighborhood of Portland, just on Valley and C Streets. If you look to the left side of the picture, that green building, we own that green building. That's Florence House. It is a housing first property, so it houses provides permanent housing for chronically homeless. And we owned a piece of land just next to it for a very long time and constantly watched the market. There was a single family home on the corner that had been used in various ways over the years, and we were finally able to purchase that single family home, combine the parcels, and build Porter Station. So Porter Station is 60 units of non-age restricted housing. It has efficiencies 1, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. It's 80% affordable, so the affordable piece serves those who are 50% of area median income and below. That's about $55,000 for a 2-person household and below, and then 20% is market rate or not income restricted. It is a passive house certified building. It has structured secure parking on the bottom. We put a very large community room in there just because of the location that has access not only to the sidewalk but on the inside of the building, so that we can partner with local organizations that can come in and do programming in the building. And it's really been a great location because of its access to public transportation, because of its walkability, because it's located to Maine Med, which is a huge employer. And so we finished this in 2023, and it's almost fully leased up. And by the way, for 60 units, we received 600 applications in less than a week. We opened it for 1 week, and we received 600 applications. So this development hasn't started. It's going to go under construction. A portion of it is going to go under construction this year. This is fairly unique. It's on CV Street in Westbrook. What's unique about this is it's a mixed income community. So this is the second time that we've done this. We purchased the land with a market rate developer, New Ventures LLC. And that allows us we had looked at the site on our own and couldn't make it work for various reasons. And then it came back around, and we were talking to a market rate developer, and we said, how can we do this together? And so we were able to share the land costs and the infrastructure costs to make it work. They're building 60 units of micro workforce housing that is not age restricted on the land, and we're going to do 60 units of age restricted, or 61 units of age restricted housing that will serve those that are 55 and older. So they've already started the construction of their phase. We will start the construction of our phase this year, and then there's a third piece of the parcel of which we will go in together and do a third phase, likely with both of us doing housing in the same building.
Are you using the same team for?
We are using the same.
Awesome.
We are same architect, same GC. So the reason why I wanted to highlight this is because this is something we've done more often. One, I think it's great because it is mixed. It's a mixed income community, not just a mixed income building, and it has made it possible for us to build affordable housing in places that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do it just because of the premium price of the land. And so when we can go in with someone else, share some of the costs, and then bring affordable housing, and the other developer can bring something else, it starts to make it feasible. So I think that's it.
Great, that's awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. You have, I'll just give this one. This is John, your turn.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm John Laliberte. Thanks to MEREDA for having us today. So I think I can speak a little bit to Reveler Development. I'm John Laliberte, CEO at Reveler. What is Reveler? Everybody asks me because it's a fairly new company, new name. To give a little history, Tom Watson is our principal. A lot of people in the room probably know Tom. He's a pretty well-respected, well-liked person. Kind of a maniac, but kind of fun too. So he came to Portland 20, 30 years ago, started buying a lot of multifamily buildings here in Portland. He grew his portfolio, continued to buy property, mostly multifamily apartment buildings, fixed these apartment buildings up, grew his management company, raised rents according to the quality of the product that he was offering. And that grew for about 20 years, and then most people went into the business about call it a decade ago and really liked the model that Tom had been doing for 20 years in buying rundown apartment buildings, fixing them, getting good tenants in, and then managing them. So what we did at that point, I came on about 6 years ago with Tom, and he started this kind of acquisitions and development piece of his business where we kind of got pushed into more of this development role or facet of the company. There wasn't a lot of opportunity to buy rundown buildings at that point as values had risen. There wasn't a lot of stock here in Portland. And as the rundown buildings started to run out, we got pushed into a development type of mode or phase. So that's when I came on. We started, working on different types of deals, a lot of heavy value add, historic rehab type deals. And we did over the last 5 years. I mean, we grew our portfolio probably about 500 or 600 units. And then
How big is your portfolio right now?
we have about 1,800 apartments here in Greater Portland. When I started, it was about 1,200 units. So after all that, we this entity or the company that Tom started had kind of evolved, right, from 20 or 30 years ago up till this year when we used to have a sponsorship or investment entity, a development entity, a property management entity, and it was time to kind of coordinate and consolidate all these different entities, and that's where we came up with Reveler Development, which launched in July. I was named to the leadership position. Still work really closely with Tom, throughout the different divisions of the company. So Reveler is it's a fully integrated real estate investment company. We have as I mentioned, we have our investment, development, management. What am I missing? Construction. We have a construction team as well. When I speak to development, we have, every project we do is a separate syndication, a standalone entity. We go out, we raise money, and go out and develop the project. Originally, it was Tom's friends and family who threw money into every deal he did. Now we've grown that partnership group to over 100 people. A lot of great equity partners. Joe Porta & Co. has been a great partner in raising and making that group of partners bigger. That group of equity partners is obviously super key to making any project happen. So that's the investment side. Development, obviously, I work really closely with my partner Mike Barton here at Reveler on all of our projects that we do, whether it's a historic tax credit project, ground up development, and then there's our construction division, who has self-performed a lot of our projects at Reveler, a lot of mill redevelopment stuff, and heavy value add stuff. Is kind of what they specialize in and kind of their wheelhouse that we try to tee them up on what they're successful at. And then it's our management company. Our Port Property Management is our management piece. It's a 60-person, fully integrated management company that manages all the properties we own and operate. So that is a little bit about Reveler. For all those who ask me, this is a good platform to kind of get it out there about what it is and how it came to be. I guess I'll go through a couple of our recent deliveries. This is Lost on the Levee. It's in Biddeford. Now, the principles that we look at all of our projects with, it's really similar to kind of what Dan was talking about at the Downs, who I think they're doing a wonderful job in what they're doing. And I think the idea that we try to go into any development with is kind of trying to look at the existing environment and then trying to see how we can enhance that existing environment with a mix of uses, a mix of different housing, different price points within the housing development. Because we believe, the diversity in the mix is ultimately it's going to bring the most, sustainable and attractive development to, whether it's a retailer, any type of commercial business, and all the residents that live at the project. So, Lost on the Levee. It's a 150,000 square foot mill building downtown Biddeford, and it is 96 apartments of residential and a 50,000 square foot self-storage facility. This is a kind of a unique property where the first two levels are only 7 and 8 foot ceilings, so it was difficult to try to make housing work in the first two levels. So we came up with a creative use. It was either going to be parking or storage, and storage we thought was ideally located downtown Biddeford. A lot of housing around there, housing continuing to grow around the area. So we built a 330 unit self-storage facility. That's it's our first venture into that, but it's interesting and we're learning a lot, and it's actually doing pretty well. So
Yeah, they're doing it at the Mercy project too.
that's right, and I assume I talked to John Cully about it a little bit. I think it was a really similar scenario where they had some space where they needed to get some revenue out of, and self-storage downtown is any self-storage consultant will tell you is a good use. So
And 100% occupancy, just like Rebecca was saying, and I think probably Dan, you're having the same thing, like just flying off the shelf.
yeah, I mean these projects in Biddeford, the mill redevelopments we've done, the River Dam Mill, Sokolol, the Levee. As soon as our construction team delivers these projects, they're fully leased, ready to go. Yep. The Armature, this is actually also kind of a part of a larger development. We call it Hanover Works, which includes 82 Hanover, which is a single-level brick building on Hanover Street that we redeveloped 2019 or so. That includes, a lot of people probably know, the Wilson County Barbecue and Batson River. And the idea was to kind of utilize that retail, supplement it with this, Class A, fully amenitized project, 171 apartments, and some ground level retail across the courtyard from Wilson County Barbecue and some other retailers. That's currently in lease up. Apartments are as we get into the leasing season, they're starting to go pretty well. So we're excited about that one. It's a great project for us. Mike Barton, my partner, did an excellent job on the execution of getting that thing built, as well as Clay Maker, who's in the front seat over here on Penobscot General Contractors. And here's our forecast. 60 Barrow Road is under construction today. So that is a 250 unit apartment building. It's also in Biddeford. The steel is being erected today, and that is near kind of the hospital, close to the Biddeford Turnpike exit. This project in particular is it's going to be a great workforce solution for a lot of people in the area. Great access to the highway. It's actually walkable to the medical center there. Really excited about that. Workforce level housing rent levels. So that'll be a great project with a lot of demand for sure. And then the Bayside Master Development Plan is a big one that we've gone through planning on recently. Fully entitled at this point, or fully approved as a master development plan. Now we're trying to get off the ground with phase 1A, 1B, which includes an affordable project and a market rate project. And so hopefully that will get into the ground at some point this year, probably later in the year. And then last one I have, I think, is the rest of the levy development down in Biddeford. We have a 20,000 square foot commercial building that we're repositioning into some retail uses, and then 31 condo units, different levels of affordability on those apartments, or sorry, those condos as well. That's the levy as a whole it's like a miniature version of the Downs. It's got all the uses, different levels of affordability on the housing. We got everything from self-storage to high-end condos. So it's really kind of a small little pocket community that we think is positioned really well in downtown Biddeford. So.
Are you mostly working Biddeford and Portland? Is that pretty much where you're developing right now?
It is. We have a project, actually, it's in the main mall area, right over the border into Westbrook, that we're also trying to make happen this year and get in the ground. That's a 204 unit apartment community as well that we're trying to capitalize this year. The challenge this year, nobody's everybody knows about the capital markets and how difficult those have been, or the tightening in the capital markets, both on the equity and debt side. So we're campaigning, trying to raise that money to get that project. That's an $80 million project that'll hopefully get in the ground at some point this year. But
is that your last slide?
let me see. It is.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So I think one of the things we want to talk about while we're here, obviously, please, if anybody has a question, these are very experienced developers. Dan, you're mostly, Scarborough Downs is what you're working on, right? At this point. Right, okay, cool. And then Rebecca, you're spread statewide, right, which is great. One of the things that we run into as a developer team is trying to figure out how to balance the blend, and I think each one of you is working on that, and maybe you could each speak to the challenges and the way that you're meeting those challenges. There's the acronym NIMBY, but I think bringing different communities that interact well together in housing, I think each of you has already mentioned that today a little bit. So Dan, can you talk to us? I mean, you're a little bit isolated. Maybe you have a buffer, but you're building new uses all together. So
Yeah, internally, like I was mentioning earlier, we've tried to integrate housing versus having different housing in different areas. So we focused on structuring our design so there's single family next to apartments, next to townhouses. That's been really successful for us because people actually really like that diversity and integration. It also
people like that diversity.
Yeah,
right, good. That's
within
good.
the project. I can't speak for the neighbors.
Are you getting pushback from neighbors have you ever?
One of the benefits of our site is there isn't a lot of neighbors. It's been a developed site for half a century. So it's not like that it hasn't generated traffic. It's not like it hasn't been there hasn't been activity there. So that's one of the benefits of the site is it's not an infill project or doesn't have that same type of NIMBY challenge. We have plenty of challenges. But that's not one of them.
But you are working within that development itself to diversify the offering so that you have kind of...
We are in part of residents and buyers being attracted to the project is the things that are coming. So that's one of the advantages we have is they expect the amenities to come. They're not fighting against them, or they're hoping for the next phases. So that's been part of our sales tactic, and that's been part of the draw. Mm-hmm. So to date, knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of internal kind of challenges in terms of building next to recent buyers or renters.
Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about maybe you have not had challenges? I would assume you have based on what you're developing, but could you tell us a little bit?
In terms of the,
Like if you're developing a building and you've got challenges around meeting financial things, but then where neighbors are coming into, and how you're mixing your populations, you're dealing with all like a range of difficult scenarios.
absolutely. So as it pertains to the neighbors, we definitely deal with NIMBYism on every single project. I think any of the affordable housing developers out here today can speak to that. We do our best to work with the neighborhood, and then certainly in terms of the development process, we're building something that fits within the aesthetic of the neighborhood, and we're trying to honor that. In terms of the programming in the building, I mean, some of that in our world, most of that is defined by the sources that we're using in the building. So in terms of income levels, when you're using tax credits, you have to meet a certain income level on the units. So it has to be 60% of area median income and below. You might have some units that are 50% of the area median income below. And then with each source that you put in there, there are additional requirements or restrictions. So we might, in some units, if we're getting money from the city of Portland, they may say 5 of your units need to serve those who have experienced homelessness. We always have ADA units that are serving those who are disabled. We might have age-restricted units for buildings that are age-restricted. And then there's, household size depending on the units. We work very hard to create mixed income communities. I think it's really important that you are creating a diverse environment. And I would also say the people who are moving into our building, you're talking about how do you mix the population with the population that's living in our building with the population that's living in the neighborhood. Often the people that are moving into our building are already living in the town or the neighborhood, or they're working there and they want to live there, but they can't afford to live there. So in terms of kind of mixing populations, that means a lot of things in our world, and I think that we're doing the best we can to make sure that we are serving every single population that needs it.
Yeah, you can tell. And John, I'm not sure, are you dealing with this? I mean, I'm assuming we all as developers have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the neighborhood and the feedback you get from the community and staff, and anytime you go through the municipal planning process, I mean, I think we found the more you embrace it, the better the outcome for everybody. So I think ultimately, like when we work with our team, we end up with a better project at the end of the day when we kind of sit at the table with stakeholders and the neighborhood and hear what they have to say. And if we can't do what they want, then we can't do it. But a lot of times they'll have feedback that will drive some of the decisions we make, and we'll implement and make better if we can. So.
And I think it's notable that we are in a housing crisis, and I often am remarking and talking to people who are kind of shocked that we still have to even deal with this, because there's people out there who are, their relatives need housing, but then they might not want whatever it is that's being produced nearby for reasons, around property values and whatnot. So one of the things that we were going to discuss is our predictions. Is anybody here, I mean, it seems like you've all got a full pipeline. You're all motivated. We know the kind of production of housing that you're producing is needed. Anybody feeling bearish on the future that you want to talk about, or bullish? What's coming down the pike?
Well, I think we're comfortable and we feel really good about the pipeline we have in our projects. I mean, we own these things or control them at a good basis, and we're looking for the right capital partners, and we're trying to create a capital stack that works for the project. We have time on our side in a lot of these cases. We can be patient. But I do think, I mean, the capital markets will be a challenge. There's no question. I think, there is still, I was talking to a contractor this morning, and subcontractors and contractors, they're still seeing projects come to their desks for pricing, right? So until that kind of slows down, you won't really see any reprieve on the construction side and the pricing side. What some of the contractors or subcontractors may not know is that a lot of the projects they're pricing probably will never happen due to capital market pressures, right? So it's kind of like it'll take a while to flush out, and it'll take it's a cycle that will take a couple of years, hopefully, before you get some reprieve maybe on pricing. But I think for now, I think the construction markets, you're seeing stable pricing, and capital markets will continue to, it's a coin flip whether rates will go up, down, or whatever. So.
We're still pursuing projects, certainly, and we still are intending to execute. It's just taking longer. We're spending more time in pre-construction. We're spending more time on pricing and repricing and VE, and obviously, John mentioned capital markets. So it's compared to a couple of years ago. Just our pace is a bit slower. We're still going to execute. It's just taking longer.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same thing. I mean, I think in our world, there's no forecast for affordable housing. We need as much of it as we can. We're going to continually to look for new land, new properties, new developments. And we're experiencing all of the same things. The difference is, as costs rise, we don't have the same levers as other developers. We have to keep our units affordable. And so that's why, it's very good that we have a state that pays attention to housing, that we have administration that supports it, we have a legislature that supports it, and we've seen some of the money that flows. That money is precious. And as affordable housing developers, we have to be very, very efficient. So when you're in a market like this where interest rates are going up, where construction costs are, they went up, they flattened, they're constantly changing, our ability to respond to that has a direct impact on how many units that we can deliver every single year. Also, it's taking longer for us to build buildings for the exact reasons that Dan and John said. But the crisis that we're in, the desperation of the people that we need to serve, it has a much more, the humanity impact of that is much greater. We see it on the ground every single day, and you hear it from, not just us, from all of our partners, from Maine Housing. And it's the reason why we need to see more resources come so that we can mitigate some of the market factors that are making it harder to develop.
So you all mentioned the planning phase. I think as developers, we're always trying to figure out that perfect balance of not getting too far ahead of ourselves or over our skis. Dan, I think what you did was remarkable, or what you're doing at the Downs, by getting all the, like you said, making the module, the lots, making it so that somebody who comes in, you've already done a bunch of that legwork for them, so that the end user doesn't have to be an expert. You're an expert in mental illness, addiction, in addition to being a developer. You're an expert in hockey, and if anybody ever wants to know more about these guys, I think we've done podcasts, right? Did you do one, John?
Yeah, that's right. Tom and I do one
Yeah,
together.
that's right. You and Tom, and I did one with you recently. Have you done one yet? But I think we featured the Downs on one of them. So please check it out, MEREDA Matters podcast. Could you talk a little bit about, Dan, would you mind talking a little bit about the planning and how you can help? And please, by all means, if anybody has questions, feel free. We're down into the last 5-6 minutes.
Sure, yeah. One of the things that we wanted to create early on is kind of certainty for end users, and especially on the business side or in the industrial side, end users know how to run their business. They don't know how to go to DOT and get a permit or design a stormwater facility. So we went ahead and made major investments in kind of pre-permitting our project in all phases. It comes with a price tag, and it comes with obviously speculation that you're going to get it back in terms of end users. But what it enabled is a really streamlined process for end users and individual sites. And
I think that's really smart, because your end users are, like you said, businesses who they need to get to business. They need to create revenue or rent or whatever the case may be. So you're taking a lot of risk off of, even if you're charging them for it, that unknown risk is mitigated. So it's a smart move.
Exactly. They want to write a check. They don't want to speculate as to what it might cost to go through permitting. I think we also did a favor to everybody in the audience, because we went in for big permits one at a time versus always being into DEP and DOT. Because that's what we would have had to do, because there's so much development and individual sites within the project that if we didn't do it that way, we'd always be applying, and we'd always be kind of churning through individual applications, which is just really unmanageable. So it's proved out quite successful for us, and I think it's a good blueprint for others that are going to proceed with kind of mid to large size projects is to pre-permit and therefore have a streamlined delivery process for the end users that you are working with as they come along.
Well, like the planning phase, like how many projects do you have in planning? What are you working on for, and like how much of your energy goes into that unknown, that part of the business where you're like, it's at most risk?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, today we don't have a lot in planning actively. I mean, we did go through a lot of that kind of master plan or planning up front in recent years, a lot of it in 2023. And that, to your point, that is kind of like some of the initial, risk or money that you're putting up front to design these projects that, you don't necessarily know in a year's time, if they're going to be feasible, right? But, like I said, I think we feel really good about the stuff we've moved forward on. And with the environment today, we're kind of, we're looking forward to making those projects happen before we kind of move forward and get back into planning with anything further. I think with our master development plan and Bayside, we'll have to go back in front of the board for each particular phase when that time comes.
What percentage of your company is dedicated to the planning part as opposed to the execution side or the maintenance side?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say. I mean, it's all just part of the process, right? It's part of the cycle, part of the full development cycle from acquisition all the way to stabilization. It's just one of those phases, and at any given time, throughout the course of that cycle, you could be in planning, you could be in construction, and we're typically on all different, different phases of a project at any given time on multiple projects, right? So it's, yeah.
That's probably pretty good. If you're working on multiple phases and you're in one position, you kind of understand the process. So it's
right. So, for example, I guess I can just use the projects we have. I mean, the armature in Bayside, we're in lease up right now. We're about, call it halfway through lease up. Barrow Road down in Biddeford, 250 unit apartment building where the steel is being erected. And then we just got through. Planning for phase 1 of our master development plan in Bayside a few months ago. So
a lot of planning.
Yeah, a lot of planning, a lot of everything, really. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Hi.
This is probably for Rebecca. So for Maine State Housing Authority, what types of projects are they looking for this coming year, and where are their priorities on scoring?
Well, we happen to have a representative from Maine Housing here today. I don't want to speak on behalf of
We
Maine
have to
Housing.
repeat the question because he didn't say it on the mic.
So Drew asked what types of housing and what type of programs is Maine Housing focused on this year. Again, I'm not here to speak on behalf of Maine Housing, but they always have a priority around. They have various programs, whether it's they have the rural rental program, they have the low-income housing tax credit program, which is focused on multifamily. They have a homeownership program and various other programs. But I would want to defer to them to say where their priorities are and where they're allocating their funds.
So we're right at the end. Oh, there you go, Drew. Just
Right.
thanks. We're right at the end. If anybody has any last questions, go ahead.
I'm curious how you get the numbers to pencil out on affordable housing, workforce housing, call it what you may. Does all that money run through Maine State Housing, or are there other avenues? Where does all that money come from?
Where does the money come from?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole session on affordable housing finance. It is incredibly complex. The money comes from various different places. So all of our developments are funded by low-income housing tax credits that are allocated at the state level through Maine Housing. But there's also equity funds in there, so we sell those tax credits and generate equity from investors. There's also local, so sometimes city and town money, tax increment financing. We also seek money at the federal level through the Federal Home Loan Bank. You may see regional money at the county level. To give you an example, the Porter Station that I showed, that had 11 sources in the capital stack. So the majority of the money will be allocated through main housing, and they also bring subsidy in addition to the tax credits. And then the equity is the next biggest portion. The debt is the next biggest portion, and then there's a little bit left, and that's plugged with a lot of other types of sources that we seek.
So what she's saying is it's really hard.
Yeah, and many of those sources are competitive, so we're applying under programs for 1, 2, or 3 different of those sources, or various grants to provide gap funding.
Thank you for asking. Okay, I don't know if are we going over? I think I went over. 0 minutes. We're done. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you to my guests. Can we have a big round of applause?